All right, here we go. Unit 4, day 4. We got some compound inequalities again. So that's this first blank spot here. That says a blank is two inequalities joined together. And we're talking about a compound inequality. Yesterday, I think we just did single inequalities. Now we're going to do two inequalities in one. So the solution for an OR, so we're talking about this type, okay? The solution of this type only has to satisfy one of the two parts. So if we look at this example here, it says x is less than 2. So that's an open circle. Less than was shaded to the left, we said yesterday. And then x is greater than or equal to 5. So that's a closed circle shaded to the right. Greater than always means to the right, less than's to the left, as long as the variable is on the left. So it's asking us to write this in interval notation. To write this in interval notation, I know that if it's shaded to the left forever, that's negative infinity. If it's shaded to the right forever, it's positive infinity. So if we take a look at the left side, that goes from negative infinity all the way to the number 2. And then we go from 5 with that bracket all the way to positive infinity. So that would be how we write a compound inequality, where there's two pieces of the inequality in one. And if you notice, for the ORs, it has this U in between, okay? So you'll notice that on your multiple choice stuff, for ORs, it always has a U. And then for an AND type of inequality, so this is the other type that we've talked about, the AND must satisfy both parts of the inequality. So in this case, it says x is greater than 2. So we have an open circle, greater than. And x is less than or equal to 5. So it's a closed circle, less than. So the only place that these two are overlapping, that's where all of our answers are in between. So from 2 to 5 is all of our answers. So this has a single inequality. It has a parentheses because that means it's not included as part of the answer. And then it has a bracket for the 5, which means that it is part of the answer. So that is how we would write our compound inequalities that are an AND. So we have two different types if you look at this. We got the ORs, which are shaded away from each other, and there's a gap in between. And we have the ANDs that are shaded towards each other without a gap. There's only one way to write the ORs, and that's with the U in between, the two separate inequalities. And then for the ANDs, it's going to be one single inequality. It says, note that x is greater than 2 and x is less than or equal to 5 can also be written as this. So these two put together, you can write with an x in the middle, and you can write it so that the x is still less than or equal to 5, but we got to flip this inequality for the 2. So the x is now on the right side, so that means the inequality will flip as well. So that sign was a greater than sign on the left over here. It has to become a less than sign and open up towards the x, and the 2 goes on the left, and that still means x is greater than 2. So and is between, or is away. So let's go to the next page. So if we have these examples, it asks us to graph and write these in interval notation. So the first example says x is greater than or equal to 3. So I go to 3 and I put a closed circle. And let me open this up a little more. And it says x is less than negative 5. So I put an open circle. If we follow the way that those arrows are pointing, for 3 it's shaded to the right. And for negative 5 it's shaded to the left because that's the way that it's written. And then if we write it in interval notation, I know that if it goes to the left forever, that's negative infinity. If it goes to the right forever, that's positive infinity. So I know that this inequality over here is negative infinity to negative 5. I always have a parenthesis around the infinity sign because you can't include it. This negative 5 is not included either as part of the answer, so we put a parenthesis. We put that u in between. We put a bracket for that 3, comma, and it goes to infinity. And that always has a parenthesis, the infinity. Let's go right below that. So 6 is a closed circle because it says equal to, and negative 5 is a closed circle because it says equal to. it has the word and if I follow the way that the arrows are pointing, they're pointing towards each other in this case, okay? So we're shading right in the middle. In order to write that as an inequality, because of the word and, I know that it can be a bracket, -5, comma 6 with another bracket, because those are closed circles for both of that. Another way that this could be written, by the way, is with the x in the middle. You can keep the 6. If you flip this second inequality around, the -5 can go on the left and the 6 can go on the right. That's another way that you'll see that written in your book and on some quiz and tests, just to give you a heads up. The next one looks like it's an and as well because x is in the middle. So I go to 1, that's an open circle according to that inequality. I go to -2, it's a closed circle according to that inequality. And then the x is in the middle, so that's where I'm going to graph this, is all in the middle. So now I go from -2, comma 1. I have a parenthesis and a bracket. The bracket means a closed circle, parenthesis means an open circle. So that's what it looks like for that one. And then the last one, what do we got? Less than 0, so that's an open circle. We got greater than or equal to 4, so that's a closed circle. If I follow the way that this is pointing, it's pointing to the right for the 4. It's pointing to the left for the 0. And if it asks me to write this in interval notation, which it does, I know that if it's shaded to the left forever, that's -infinity. Shaded to the right forever is +infinity. So now I would say that this is -infinity to 0 with a parenthesis for both, with a u in between. I have a bracket for that 4 because it's a closed circle all the way to infinity. So that would be my interval notation for that one. So then the rest of these are solving for x. Okay, so down below, we're going to get to this point that we just did. So we got to do another step or two, and then we're going to graph and write an interval notation. So now for number 1, to get x by itself, we would have to subtract 3. And when we subtract 3, we subtract it from all 3 sides. So we have 6 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 8. So from here, those are both less than or equal to at 6 and 8, so I know they're closed circles. I know that x is in between, so that means it's an and type of inequality. So the shading should be right in between these two. And if I write that in interval notation, I know that my 6 has a bracket, my 8 has a bracket, and that's all we got to do is make it 6, 8. Number 2, to get x by itself, we'd have to add the 20 to all 3 sides. That's how we get x by itself. So we added 20. That would create a 0 on the far left and a 28 on the far right. We divide by 4 on all 3 sides. What we do to one side, we do to all 3. And we get x is greater than 0 and x is less than or equal to 7. So I go to 0 and I have an open circle. I go to 7, that's closed. So now my x is in between. So that's where I'm going to shade. And then 0, 7 are my 2 numbers. I have a parenthesis at 0 because it's open circle, and a bracket at 7 because that's a closed circle. So that's 1 and 2. Pause it if you need more time here to look at that. I'm going to go to 3 and 4. So 3 is an and type of inequality because the x is in between. So I'm going to subtract 4 from all 3 sides. And I get -3 is less than -3x, which is less than 6. You divide by -3 to get all of the, or to get the variable by itself. Oopsie. When I divide by a negative, that flips both inequality signs. So now this, according to our rules, x is between -2, which is an open circle, and 1, which is an open circle, and x is in between, so I have shading like that. So if I write my interval notation correctly, that'd be -2 to 1 with 2 parentheses. So that's what it would look like for 3. And then number 4, to get x, or to get the b's by itself, I'd have to divide by 3 on the left and divide by 2 on the right. So I get b is greater than 5, or, because the word or is there, b is less than or equal to -2. So I go to -2, I put my closed circle. I go to 5, I put my open circle. So now that I have an open and closed circle, I follow the way that this is pointing. So for -2, it's pointing to the left. So that's the way that I'll shade. For 5, it's pointing to the right. So that's the way that I'll shade. So now that would be -infinity, because that's the way that this is going, comma, -2. That's a bracket and a closed, or a parenthesis for the infinity. In union, because that's what we write for the ors, we have a parenthesis for 5, comma, infinity, another parenthesis. We never have a bracket for the parentheses because they can't be equal to anything. So that's 3 and 4. If you need some time, press pause. And then 5 and 6 are my last two. So now I would subtract 7 on the left side. So I get 2a is greater than or equal to 2, divide by 2, and I get a is greater than or equal to 1. Or I divide by -4. I know when I divide by a negative, that flips that sign. So I'd get a is less than or equal to 2. And what do I got here? I got greater than or equal to 1, less than or equal to -2, shaded to the left, shaded to the right. So now I have -infinity to -2, parenthesis and bracket, in union with 1 to infinity. So that would be my answer for 5. And then for the last one, for 6, we do the left side. So we divide by -4. That flips the inequality around. And then we distribute here. So this is a little bit more work. And then we subtract 9. And then we divide by 3. So that one had a few steps there. So now we have d is less than -2. And d is greater than -7. So the word and tells me it's probably going to be shaded in between. So let's see here. It should be. If we did this correct. So greater than and less than. Yep, looks like it's right in between if we follow those arrows. So if we set this up correctly, that's -7 to -2 with parentheses on both sides. So that's how we do number 4. Any questions on that? So you might want to press pause here if you need more time. Oh, I thought that was it. Yeah, so we're done. Have a great day. See you guys tomorrow for day 5.